So, welcome to Last of Us Mondays on a Tuesday. Eventually, I'll get these out on a Monday, but I'm going to be reviewing the third episode of The Last of Us Season 2. Full spoiler warning, I cannot review this episode without talking about the stuff that happened in the episode, particularly the stuff that happened in the last episode, which, yeah, was some pretty deep stuff. Of course, it's also going to be spoiling parts of the game. I'll try not to dive into anything that happens later in the game, which will likely spoil stuff that will happen later in the show, so for that, don't worry too much, but this will be just for episode 3 and what I think is kind of coming in the next coming episodes. So episode 3 follows the traumatic death of Joel. Joel is now dead, and now this is the question of what happens now. Where does the community go? Where does Ellie go? What is the revenge quest going to look like? Because of course there's going to be a revenge quest. That's what this season is about. It's about revenge, baby! And the episode starts with a pretty big time jump. Now, I don't really remember how big the time jump was in the game. I don't remember if it was a day, a week, a month. I don't think it was as long as it is in the game. In the game here, it appears that it is multiple months since the Joel incident, and Ellie has been staying in sort of a hospital pretty much the entire time recovering. And now she's out, and Dina comes to her and says, Ellie, I know where the people that killed Joel are. I know where they're at. We're gonna go and kill them. Let's talk to Tommy first. And Tommy's like, yes, let's do it. But let me talk to my wife first. That all happens in the game, which is perfectly fine. What doesn't happen in the game is a big, gigantic community meeting talking about going and getting revenge for Joel, which is actually something that is a new addition to the show that I enjoyed. Overall, actually, this whole episode, most of the new stuff I enjoyed. This is probably my favorite episode of the new season so far, and one of the strongest, one of the few episodes that doesn't change too much, and the things that I think it did change didn't exactly hurt the overall story yet. There are some nitpicky things that I'll go into, but for the most part, I enjoyed sort of the newer things. Because it would make sense that a community that just went through this gigantic traumatic event that, yeah, didn't really happen in the game the same way, would have this large conference to say, hey, are we going to use resources to go avenge one of our people when we just lost dozens of them? It's a real conversation, and you can understand the point of view of no, we're not, which is what is in turn going to send Ellie on her quest with Dina, essentially alone, with no resources and no real backup to go do it themselves. Really enjoyed the scene. I don't know if I really needed the guy that's like a real dick. He was like the homophobe at the dance party. I don't know if I needed him coming out and being like, hey, I'm on their side now. I'm a good guy. Redemption arc, baby. Like in the game, his redemption arc, I believe, is just him making them a sandwich. Here, he's like, I'm gonna back you up. I'm gonna fight for you. I love Tommy as a character. I really don't like what they did, kind of not having him with Joel when Joel died. But you could definitely see, especially the actor that's playing him, Diego Luna, the pain that has been inflicted on this man. And the fact that, yeah, he's putting on this sort of, this face of, I'm gonna get through it, you know, I'm grieving. But, you know, we live in such a bad world. You gotta find a way to live with it. But you could see underneath, there is that anger and that rage that he is going to get his hands dirty. The other thing I must applaud in this episode continuously is easily the best part of this season so far, and that's Isabella Merced as Dina. My God, they got one casting 100% correct, and it was that. Isabella Merced has not only played this character to perfection, she has elevated this character to a point where it is easily the best thing to watch on screen in this show. She is so amazing, has so much energy and charisma, and just her chemistry with Bella Ramsey as Ellie, it really is making this game. I actually think the chemistry between them two is better than the characters in the game. The game, it felt a little bit more forced than it does here. Here, it feels organic. Not to say Bella Ramsey would have been my choice to play Ellie. Yet again, I think she just looks too young and too childish for this version of Ellie, but she's doing a fine job. I don't think she's doing as bad as everybody says she is. I just think she's not the perfect person for this role in this season, which is unfortunate, but she does a decent job of what she's given. This episode also gives us a glimpse of what's going on in Seattle with that weird cult group that we encounter in the game. I don't know if we needed a look at that group this early, especially in a non-horror element when you're introduced to them in the game for the first time. It is one of the scariest things ever. They terrified the crap out of me. The whistling, how they communicate, just how dangerous they are. And here they immediately put you with the group in sort of a protagonistic way. I don't get that. Why? Why would you waste the potential of having them start off as this horrifying element and then go into what the game eventually does? I don't understand it, but that was the decision they made, and it is what it is. I also don't understand why they're doing this weird sort of will they, won't they with Ellie and Dina. In the game at this point, it was pretty much established that, yeah, they're a thing at this point. That's gonna happen. They had the whole thing with the weed place, and that doesn't happen in the show, and they're doing this. We're not really sure if Dina's into Ellie. She kind of is, and it's just, I don't get it. Maybe it's this wish fulfillment in writing thing. They want to keep the audience waiting on it forever and ever and ever. I just don't think enough of the audience is really rooting for it out there for it to be that meaningful. I also don't like how bad the Seattle skyline was in this episode, how bad it looked. This is a real nitpick here. It's really not that big of a deal. But I saw a side-by-side image. I'm not going to be able to get it on this video, probably. Maybe I will, but it was literally the Seattle skyline from the game, the Seattle skyline from the live-action TV show, and somehow the video game one from 5 years ago looked better than the real-life show version. It's just kind of silly. I will say I was a lot happier with this episode than I was the last 2 weeks. Not that this one was the most sort of close-knitted to the video game. It never really made me feel like I was back in the game that I love so much, but it's the one that it just, the changes for the most part that it made felt justified for the overall story. It didn't feel like shoehorned in changes just to be there for change's sake. They felt good and organic and dramatic and true to the characters of the TV show. We had some good moments with Ellie and Dina. I think Tommy is such a great character as he is in the game. And overall, this was probably the best episode of what has been a very disappointing season so far for me personally. What do you guys think of The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 3? Let me know down below. Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more notifications, and I'll see you in the next one!